What's up? My name is Jimmy Rex. I'm a real estate agent. Been in the business for 15 years now. I got in 2005 and built my career off of for sale by owners. My first 5 years in the business, became one of the top agents in my marketplace by every single morning going into my office, calling for sale by owners, grinding the phones, and then going on appointments all afternoon, following up with people all day. And in 2010, I made a switch and started focusing more on other methods such as working with social media and different things like that, working with my clients, and really changed my entire philosophy. So I created a system. It worked really well for me, became the top agent in my marketplace, sold over 2,500 homes since 2005. And so that system was called the 100K Agent Blueprint. And I was convinced if anybody uses this, then they would immediately make six figures a year or more. And set up for me, Instagram is where I get about 40% of my deals. Last year, my team did 324 transactions. And again, with 40% of them coming from social media, I set up some coaching around that as well called the Social Realtor. And so I teach other agents how to do that. I'm also the author of a book called The Next Wave of Influence in Real Estate that teaches real estate agents basic things that they can do to kind of launch their business, or if they get stuck or get in a rut, things they can do marketing or otherwise to help get them out of that. Before I really got going with social media and video and all that stuff, I built my entire, like I said in my intro, I built my entire business through pounding the phones. And so I was a door knocker, I was a phone caller. In 2005, when I first got in the business, my first 6 months, I had no idea what I was doing. I was basically just churning my wheels and not really having much success. And then after that, in 2006, I discovered Mike Ferry, started doing Mike Ferry coaching, which is basically memorize scripts, prospect all day, lead follow-up, go on appointments. And I did that religiously for 2006, 7, 8, 9, and 10. But what happened is I burned out. I burned out completely. Anybody that's done that knows it's very effective. I became one of the top real estate agents in my market. But also, you kind of give up all the reasons you got into real estate, right? You give up freedom. You give up your weekends and nights. You're giving up, like I got into real estate to travel the world and to do cool events with my friends and to, have freedom and time to be with family and friends, all those kinds of things. And I had none of that. So for 5 years, I was closing 100 or so homes a year, but I was really just not enjoying the process. And on top of that, you had all of the market collapsing and everything else. And at the end of 2010, I was burned out. And I went to my real estate coach, a guy by the name of Bill Pipes. He's Tom Ferry's right-hand man. And I said, Bill, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be a real estate agent anymore because it would have gotten so hard. And that's when he sat down with me and he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to travel the world. I want to work with charities. I want to do client events. I want to make this fun again. I want to have time and freedom and things like that. And so we started realizing that if I used a couple different pillars, which was a big one again was the client events and the video, the social media marketing stuff, that I could reach a lot more people. So instead of calling 30 for sale by owners in the morning that took me 3 or 4 hours to give those phone calls in, I could make one post on social media. We'll get into that a little bit more using video. But before I got into the video, that's what I did. I was just a grinder. I was just grinding and grinding and grinding. And it wore on me. I've literally quit the business for like 5-6 months. Before I started using video, I was a very successful agent. I was one of the top agents in my marketplace. I was closing again around 100 homes a year with a very small team, maybe one other agent and an assistant. But what I realized is I was trading dollars for hours almost always. And so yeah, I was very successful. But what I didn't have was the lifestyle that I wanted. And so I realized I needed to be able to reach a lot more people if I wanted to be more successful as a real estate agent. So I actually, a friend of mine was an influencer on Instagram, and she had made, like one day she was staying at my house. Her boyfriend was living with me at the time. And she had made $40,000 that day for a 30-minute Instagram live that she did on video. And it just blew my mind, completely blew my mind. I said, what are we talking about here? And I'd been using Instagram to post my food or to just kind of as a toy, kind of almost like posting memes and things like that. And she showed me how she had built that thing to make her all this money. And it was about that same time I had another buddy by the name of Garrett that sold an app to Snapchat. And me and him went on a trip, and he'd made millions of dollars on that. And he started a thing called the Bucket List Family. And what they do is they create a new video every week. It's a video blog on YouTube. And they would go around the world to all these different places. And I was like, are you just burning through all of your cash, like from selling your business or what? And he said, dude, I'm making more money doing this than I was as a VP at Snapchat. He was making over $1 million a year making videos and putting them on YouTube. I was like, wait, what the hell? And that was when I realized there was something here. When I spent 4 days on the boat and we were out swimming with sharks in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, And I had 4 days on this liveaboard boat where I got to rack his brain about a lot of these things. And I learned very strategically how I could use video in my own business. And so then I started looking at, and I'd been hearing from some of the gurus like Gary Vaynerchuk had been talking about it forever, and Tom Ferry, videos the next thing, videos the next thing. And I just hadn't really dove into it. I had really paid attention to it. This was probably 2000, well, it was like 5 years ago or whatever. And at that time, that's when I finally said, okay, I need to make this a part of my business. And I remember I did my first Facebook Live, and I was all nervous. I just broke down how a real estate investment property would work, how the numbers show, what's going on there. And when I did that, with that investment property, I had like 15 different people call me up and say that they wanted to buy an investment property, that they loved my video, it made so much sense to them. And so after that, after I got that video made and sold all those homes, I realized this was gonna be the way that I was gonna reach the masses. I no longer had to call 30 or 40 people every day. Instead, I could make good videos, good content, and get the same amount of people to reach out to me and contact me. So I made that a regular part of my system, essentially, for lead generation. A couple of the things I did with videos, first off, I said I need to be able to use Instagram very effectively to lead generate. And so I kind of figured out the best people, what they were doing on that. And there's a couple things. And number one is you have to use it as a tool to attract people to you. And so this was the most important thing that I learned with Instagram, talking to my friends that were making money with it, is you don't want to be salesy. You don't want to be pitching homes. You don't want to be talking about your business all the time. What you want to do is attract people to you, get them curious, and then they're going to reach out to you to buy or sell a home. And so what I started doing is I started making some really good content around different videos and things and all of a sudden I started a podcast. I put a lot of local people that have a lot of notoriety, and I started using these videos to build my network. So my YouTube videos, I have my 240 episodes in now, and they're 240 of the most successful people here in the state of Utah, or even nationally, some of them. But those videos brought people to my Instagram. They brought people to my YouTube page. And every single podcast, I start it by talking about real estate. I have sponsors on the podcast, and in that sponsorship, I talk about the home warranty company. I said, Elevate Home Warranty, having done over 2,500 transactions here in the state of Utah, I've worked with every home warranty company, and the one that I trust is Elevate Home Warranty. So for an example, using their own ad, I'm reminding people I'm a real estate agent, and I'm telling real estate stories all the time. And so I was using that to get people to come to me without putting real estate in their face. It's just a quick little part of the podcast, but the podcast was the story about whoever I was interviewing. It was their story and their interesting thing. So then I would take clips of that and I started putting it on my Instagram. I started making really interesting clips about real estate and videos and putting it on my YouTube. And all these things started adding up. And then I had a couple videos, that I put a little bit extra time and effort into. I had a viral video. I started sinking my houseboat, and I knew it was gonna be a crazy thing. And so I told all my buddies to keep recording. I made a video that went viral. I put some Titanic music to it. I ended up getting over 150 million views. And again, it just attracted a lot of people to my page and what I was doing. I did the same thing a month ago. I made a video, it's called Take Off Your Mask. And it's very controversial at the beginning, but it's actually about taking off the mask you wore before the pandemic, the mask of insecurity, the mask of fear, and all that. And so by sharing that video, I think it got 1.5 million views on my Facebook page. And by sharing those types of things, I'm attracting people to me. Whereas now when I reach out and I do a lot of my contacting now, instead of texting or calling, I'll do a lot of my contacting through social media, where I'm hitting them up in the direct messages and things like that. And people respond a lot quicker. People don't like to leave messages unread in their inboxes in their social media. They're much more prone to open that than an email or even a text message. And so I just really use these strategies to attract people. I built my Instagram up very big. I became essentially trying to become the person in the community that everybody knows for real estate. So, when I first got into business, I wanted people, when they thought of Jimmy Rex, they thought of real estate. And I want to change that. The last couple of years using these videos, I said, I want when people think of real estate, they think of Jimmy Rex. And that's what I've tried to establish by doing these different content strategies. I've tried a bunch of other strategies, by the way, that didn't work. I'm not saying everything I tried worked. I tried to do like 100 things to do in Utah video series, and nobody was watching it. I tried to do like a places to eat in Utah and go to these different restaurants and make videos, and they weren't necessarily, the quality and content probably wasn't good enough. I think if I redid those things, they would work now that I have a bigger audience. But I've tried a lot of things that didn't work. I talked about different real estate deals on my Facebook Live. Probably the most important thing I've ever done. If you're only gonna do one thing with video, if you're watching this conference and you think you're gonna do maybe only just one thing, what I would recommend is do a Facebook Live at least once a week or at least every 2 weeks at the minimum, and just go on there, go live and talk to people and tell them about real estate. Tell them about how real estate works, a real estate deal, break down these investment properties, or interview one of your investors that you've sold a home to and have him break down how much money he's making through that investment. Those are the most effective videos I've ever done, because what it does, it tells everybody else who's thinking about real estate, A, I keep it very simple so they're able to understand it, but B, they're connecting, they're seeing it, and it gets them very curious about real estate. And so those are a couple of the key things that I've done. I'd say those are the most important ones that I did. But everything I do with video, like when you see somebody, when you're actually watching them on video, you feel more connected to them. I run into people every single day because of my podcast and my videos that I've made. I run almost every day, I'll run into somebody that's like, hey, you're Jimmy Rex, right? This is in my own community. And these opens conversations. They know that I'm a real estate agent. I was at the gym 2 days ago and this kid came up to me and he started talking about it. And I was literally going to the bathroom probably right when I released my video about the mask videos. So 3 weeks ago, I was going to the bathroom and the dude next to me was like, hey, Jimmy, love the video about the mask. I was like, thanks, man. It was just kind of funny. But so by doing these things, and here's the thing is you're not going to make any one video, like even the video that had 150 views, this video I just did that had 1.5 million views, they don't boost you where you're like, now all of a sudden you're set. Like it's the consistency over time. It's re-putting it into people's heads that you're the real estate expert, and really sharing that message is where you're going to get traction with people in the long run. Video created a lot of opportunities for me that I maybe wouldn't have had otherwise. And a big one for me was just the network that I was able to grow. And let me explain this a little bit. So whenever you meet somebody, you want to have a reason to pull them into your life. You want to have a reason to connect with them or to follow up with them. So let's say you're at the airport and you meet somebody amazing, but you have a conversation, like there's not a great way to follow up. Like, let's do lunch. Here's my business card. All those things are just too salesy. They don't really work. And so I was actually on a podcast with one of the top networkers in the world a couple weeks ago, and he said this very thing, and I'd been doing it without consciously thinking about it, but he teaches podcasting, and the reason why his name's Travis Chappell, and he said he's had, you name it, he's had the who's who on his podcast, and he said every single person should have a YouTube page or a podcast, something where you get a camera in front of somebody basically, because every single person that you come across, you want to have a reason to follow up with them. And to build a network, you have to have something that's going to create some value for them. So if you build a good YouTube page, if you build a big Instagram following, or you build a big podcast, then these people are going to want to work with you. So I met Dean Graziosi, helped me get my first book out, did some things. Well, when I had a chance to get Dean on my podcast, I said, Dean, I really want to set up a podcast. He had me come up to Park City. I spent an hour and a half with him at this hotel room, and we did the podcast. Now we're on a first name basis. I went to the Tony Robbins event, for example, in Fiji in January. And the guy that led it is a guy by the name of Luke Wren. And I really like this guy, just a really cool guy. And we connected very well. And at the end of the seminar, I said to him, I said, hey man, I want to stay in touch. I got this really cool podcast. I named a few of the people that have been on it. And because I have some credibility now, I said, if you ever come out to Utah, or if I'm ever in Florida, let's do the podcast. Well, he just came out to Utah and we did the podcast. But we spent half a day together. We went hiking. We went to dinner up in Sundance. We did all these things together because I had the podcast. Me and that guy have now gotten close. I met Prince EA, who's one of my favorite influencers in the entire internet. The guy's got over 2 billion views. His message is all about love and really just an amazing message about just being a good person. Well, when I met him in November, I was kind of like, actually, the way I met him was through Cody Sperber, the clever investor. And a lot of people know who he is because he's a real estate guy. I met Cody the same way. My buddy Sean, I told him I wanted to do a podcast with Cody. Cody agreed because he was friends with Sean. I flew to Arizona, did the podcast with Cody. Cody actually spent like 2.5 hours with me. I always thought he was annoying on his ads and stuff. Turns out he's like the coolest guy ever. Me and Cody became really good friends. Then he invited me to this conference, and at the conference is where I met Prince EA. Well, when I was there, I was a little bit nervous, to be honest. And Cody, he goes, who do you want to meet, dude? I said, dude, I kind of want to go meet Prince EA, but I don't, really know. He's like, come here. So Cody introduces me to Prince EA, all because we did a podcast together and we shot this video. And me and Prince EA hit it off. And then me and Prince EA are actually the ones, like we became friends. He actually bought an investment property off me in Florida. And then he and I were the ones that did that video that I just put on Facebook. He's in it with me. Like he and I did that video. He taught me how to do it. And I hired him to teach me how to do a really cool viral video that got 1.5 million views. He knows exactly what he's doing. And so it's really cool. Like all this came because I set something up, an opportunity to create networking opportunities. Like you have to have something. So every person in my network now, I have all these amazing people I'm meeting in my network. I just got back. I was just in Texas over the weekend, and we went to this ranch where you you help the farmers get rid of the wild pigs that destroy their crops. You shoot them from a helicopter. And it was like one of the funnest things I've ever done. The dude that put it all together, this dude's just a total baller. And the last thing I said was like, dude, thank you so much. I would love to interview you for my podcast. He's like, oh man, that would be amazing. I'd love that. Like he knows that my podcast has credibility. He wants to be on it. We've been texting back and forth the last few days. That was the first time I'd ever met him, was when I was there. So there's all these opportunities for networking that you have to have some kind of tool, either a YouTube page, a podcast, or a big Instagram, to follow up with people and to build that network with people that they'll give you an hour and a half if you have something that's going to benefit them. They have to have something that's going to create value for them. One last thing I can say is on the state of Utah, we have our governor race going on right now, right? The election's going to be here soon. And that when there was 4 main people running for governor, 3 of them reached out to me to be on my podcast to share their message. They want to get their message out because they know we have 20 to 50,000 listeners every episode. So whoever wins governor, I'm going to have a personal relationship with that person now. I don't know the value of that, but it's big. I also had Mia Love on, who was the congressman for my area. I had Mitt Romney on, who's the senator for Utah. I mean, I've been able to connect with all these politicians. This state attorney general, Sean Reyes, is a close friend of mine now. We've actually gone on a trip to Hawaii, or it's not to Hawaii, to Cabo together. But Sean, met him through doing videos and things like that. So there is so much power in the network behind the videos. And I think that's what I've probably done better than anybody, is leveraged video to build up my network, to get to know anybody I want to, not just in my community, but on a national level now as well. Since the beginning of mankind, people that can tell the best stories get the best from their community. So for example, the person that could tell the best story was probably the leader or the chief of the community. Like Barack Obama, the reason why he won president, because he could tell a story so well. He's such a good orator. They say Ronald Reagan was the same way. Teddy Roosevelt was the same way. During World War II, FDR would get on the radio every night and tell these firesides, just tell stories. Like the person that can tell the story the best, the orator that's the best, is going to always get the biggest benefit from that community. So if you tell a story well in your videos, you're gonna create a tribe. You're gonna create an audience. I have a friend that's really good at telling stories, and his entire job now, his entire career, is he puts videos on social media, he drives traffic to a group, it's his private group, and in his group he has 450 people that pay him $100 a month to be a part of this group or this tribe. So if you can get good at telling a story, you're going to attract people to you. Like any good party, go to a party, who has everybody looking at him? Always, one of my mentors used to say, you always want to be the observed, not the observer. And the person being observed is the one telling a story. And it's like, the way he would explain, he's like, you don't want to run around to everybody trying to tell stories. Just tell a story, let people come, watch, be entertained, and those people want to get to know you. Like the most interesting people to me are the ones that tell a good story. Temple in Thailand that I was able to visit. This is the Sydney Opera House. I went there last November. This over here we've got is London. I went there 2 years ago. Have you ever been sitting there and somebody's talking to you, and maybe on a bus or at a restaurant, some random old guy or something comes up and starts talking to you, and you have things to do, you have other things on your mind, but you can't help but just sit there and listen because the guy's so good at telling his story. And the opposite is also true. Have you ever heard somebody start telling a story and they just cannot tell a story? Like either they stretch it out way too long, tell way too many details, it's just not a good story, or they keep saying things like, well, you had to be there, but they just can't tell a good story. You don't want to listen to that person. Like no part of you wants to listen to that person any longer because they don't know how to tell the story. And so I think the important thing here is if you know how to tell a story, you're going to attract a lot more and a lot better people into your life. So stories and videos is the same thing. You're going to attract more followers, better followers, more people that end up buying real estate, frankly. There's a couple things you want to do right now. If you're watching this video and you want to get started in video branding for real estate, number one is figure out what you want your message to be. What am I going to use video for? So I would sit down and write 5 or 6 things specifically that you're going to use video for and what your purpose of that is. It's like any goal. You want to have the purpose first, right? Like your why behind it. And then the what is the goal? And then you can write the massive action plan or the steps you're going to do to make it happen. So if I was watching this today and I've never used video or not used it very much, I'd say, all right, number one is I want to be consistent with my Instagram stories. Every day I'm going to post at least 3 videos on my Instagram story. Every day I'm going to post one thing on my Instagram. Every day or once a week, I'm going to do a Facebook Live. And I would map this out, like actually set it, just like this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm doing. But then I would say, all right, with Facebook Live, why do I want to do a Facebook Live every week? What do I want to actually put on that video? I would either break down, like have your clients talk about their experience with you, like a kind of like almost like a video reference, or I would try to break down some investment properties you've sold, or maybe break down interest rates. One of the best videos I ever did was showing what the difference between a house with a 2.6% rate, which is where they're at today, versus a 5 or 6% rate where they were a few years ago, or 4% rate, and show them the savings and break that stuff down. But do that with a purpose. Then you can start doing that. So that would be one thing I would do. The next thing I would do is like, all right, how else am I going to use video? And I'd think of 3 or 4 things to start. Like if you try to implement 20 new things with video, because as you guys watch this conference, you're going to come up with a million ideas. But maybe you get a list of everybody's birthday, or maybe the first thing you do every morning when you get to the office is you go on Facebook and you see whose birthday it is. And you make those people a video and you text it over to them, or you email it over to them, or you just Facebook message it over to them. But it's a personalized video that you make, and maybe that's part of your routine. But I would just get very specific on like, all right, I'm gonna use video. So like what I did is I said, I'm gonna use video to build up my lead generation and my networking. But the networking part of it to me was the most important. So I purposely set up, I said, here's what my podcast is gonna look like. I had a goal. I said, I wanna have 10,000 listeners per episode by the end of the year. And then I said, all right, what do I need to accomplish? I made a list of every person I wanted to get on the podcast. I started reaching out and I started learning what podcasting was, how to do it, listening to other podcasts. So it's the same kind of thing here. You just want to map out, what are you trying to accomplish here? What will that do for you? How much business do you think that'll bring in? And then you start just putting that plan together. But I think really getting crystal clear about why you want to do it and specifics of which 2 or 3 even things you're going to do to start today and how you're going to implement that into your daily routine. Anybody can do social media marketing. Anybody can do video marketing. If you look at some of the most successful people on Instagram, on YouTube, a lot of them are not good looking or polished or anything else. In fact, Casey Niger, whatever his name is, one of the biggest YouTube influencers. He's one of the weirdest looking dudes you'll ever see in your life. Just look it up. One of my buddies, who is, he doesn't come off very polished at all. He's one of the smartest men I've ever met when it comes to video marketing. His name's Dan Fleischman. If you don't follow him on Instagram, give him a look. But Dan isn't this big flashy guy. He's this skinny dude. His clothes are always a little oversized. He's the smartest dude in the room. But all he does is gets on and he does it consistently every single day. But he's so good at social media, so good at video marketing. And so those are 2 people that come to mind right off the bat. But like, I had a dude named Stuart on my podcast. He's got 4 million followers on YouTube. Dude does magic tricks and stuff, and he couldn't be goofier looking. I got to be honest. It does not matter what you look like. What's important is that you do get good at making the videos, but you have to suck in order to get good. So just start and do them. Don't get caught up in nothing. Like, make it look as good as you can. You can control the lighting. You can control the sound. Those are the 2 most important things. From there, dress decently. Like, look like a normal person that's not distracting, and just go after it. But don't get too caught up in what everything else looks like. Today I want to remind you guys that every single war is won or lost inside your own mind. I mean, nowadays we live in a world where everything's crazy, everything's burning, everything's going nuts. And frankly, if you watch the news, you're misinformed with the fake news. If you don't watch the news, you're misinformed. And so you have to be more vigilant than ever, to mentally tough, more mentally tough than ever before. Every single battle is going to take place here. A lot of the best social media posts I've made or videos that I've made were when I was being super authentic with people. I think we live in a world where we don't trust politicians, we don't trust police, we don't trust our leaders. What people trust now, like Joe Rogan is the #1 influencer in the world right now. He's probably going to host a debate with Trump and Biden, because nobody else is to be trusted in the entire media. The reason why people love Joe Rogan is because he's so authentic. He says, I'm an idiot. I'm a musclehead. Like, I do pot. Half the time I'm high on the set. He's drinking whiskey while he's doing his interviews. He's and not saying that is what you want to be doing, but he's just authentic. He says, like, I don't know what I'm doing out here. I'm just out here having a good time. He's just a bro. And so, I think what people love about that is that level of authenticity. I know when my podcast kind of blew up, when I started getting a little more vulnerable and talking about my real shit, like stuff that was going on in my life that maybe wasn't as fancy or as sexy as some of the other stuff. One of my close friends, a guy by the name of Sean Whalen, And he just tears himself open on his social media. He talks about his insecurities and his fears, but he does it in a way where everyone else is like, oh my gosh, it's okay for me to feel that way, because we all have them. Everybody's feeling these same things. And when we actually open up about it and talk about it on social media, you get a huge reaction. People aren't, it's no longer like it was when Instagram first came out. It was like, look how cool my life is. That's not what's popular anymore. That isn't what attracts people anymore. It's digging into things. It's having thoughtful conversations and posts and make sure they look good. But really, the depth to them is what people want now. And so I think that's the most important thing when it comes to authenticity and social media is, yeah, you want to make sure that your message is received the right way. Nothing worse than the guy trying to front on social media. We've all seen the dude that's just putting the fancy cars up and he's like, caption this post, and it's like him in some weird car, right? And it's like, nobody cares, bro. Like, that is just so far from what works on social media today. Like, what people want. Rachel Hollis is a good example of this. Like, she just is very real with herself. She's a huge influencer, but she got that way by just being real and being honest. And to go back to my buddy, the Bucket List family, Garrett G, he'll make these videos and he'll show all the things he screws up. He'll show his kids not, obeying him and some of these things. It's kind of funny and lets people realize, like, okay, this family that looks like they're perfect, they've got their things too. And I think that's what makes them so personable. I spent the first 5 years of my career pounding the phones every single day. I took so much pride in being the first sell by owner guy. Every single day I was the first one in the office. I made them build me a private closet where I'd go make my calls where nobody would disturb me. And I burned out. I was done. I couldn't make another phone call like that. And I realized there's got to be a better way to do this. And I didn't really believe it myself. People said, you got to start using videos. And I'd make a few and they were terrible. And I just nobody responded to it. And then all of a sudden I learned from some other friends that this stuff actually works if you take it serious. And so I would tell you, if you've been holding off, or you've been sitting on the sidelines, like, just treat it like a serious part of your job. That's the most important thing. But I made one video last year that sold me 14 houses. One video sold me 14 houses. I was showing a builder and I was showing an area and I showed him how it could do it. And you know how many calls I would have had to make those 14 sales? That would have taken me probably 700 to 800 calls. And so I'm just very passionate about video. It's allowed me, last year I traveled 127 countries. This was the pre-COVID days of our careers, but 2019 I traveled 127 days of vacation. I went to 26 countries. I was able to do this because I was able to stay in touch with my clients. They felt like I was connected even if I was halfway around the world. I realized that social media, networking, marketing, these are the things all connected to video that allowed me to do that. So if you're still sitting on the sideline, like, you don't have to implement video into your career to get better at this. But I promise you, it's going to make your life a lot better. The whole reason we all got into real estate was to have more time with our family and friends, doing more things we wanted to do, have more money. And this is a huge way that you can make that difference. It changed everything for me.